All right. Welcome, everybody, to a very exciting edition of the Get Better Faster podcast. I am Dr. Jason Bradley. I'm here with my co host and compatriot, James Chester, and our executive producer, Rachel Bradley. And today we have a truly revolutionary and some would say controversial guest who's turning traditional cardiology on its head. Dr. Jack Wolfson is known as the paleocardiologist, a board certified cardiologist who walked away from the conventional medical system after 16 years of performing angiograms and installing pacemakers. He's been featured on CNN, NBC, Fox, ABC, quoted in the Washington Post and in USA Today, and named a top 50 functional medicine doctor, and is a 5-time winner of a top holistic MD award. His 100-year heart method is helping people prevent and reverse heart disease naturally without drugs or dangerous procedures. If you or someone you love is dealing with heart issues, high cholesterol, blood pressure problems, COVID vaccine injuries, this conversation could literally save your life and their life. It's estimated that over 1 million Americans will die this year alone due to preventable cardiovascular diseases. And I want to hear what to do about it from the guy everyone's turning to. Please welcome Dr. Jack Wolfson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, James, Dr. Jason. Pleasure to be on. Excited to dive into some cool topics here.
Yeah, we have plenty to go around here. I think, you're a powerhouse on this knowledge and the skills that people can glean from this conversation today, and the pathways they can possibly take. And after being in the regular MD model matrix for 16 years, you decided to step away from that. And I think that that's a cool origin story to start into with is, when did you first know that you had something that could get people better faster and jump out of that medical matrix?
Yeah, that's a great question. So back in at the end of 2004, I was in practice as a hospital-based cardiologist, and I've been in the biggest group in the state of Arizona for about 2.5 years. And simultaneously, serendipitously, God introduced me to this young woman who's a 29-year-old chiropractor. And at the time, I was obviously seeing a lot of sick people in the hospitals. And unfortunately, my father was also sick and dying of a Parkinson's-like illness. And the Mayo Clinic has no idea why my father is sick and dying, and they've got no treatment for him. And then I meet this 29-year-old doctor of chiropractic, and she's got all the reasons why my father is sick and dying: the way he eats, the way he lives, the way he thinks, environmental toxins, pollutants, chemicals, all these things. And it was just such an epiphany moment that here Mayo has nothing and the chiropractor has everything. And what she said made perfect sense. And I started to change the way that I would live, the way that I would think. I did not want what would happen to my father to happen to me. So I listened to her, and then we would shortly thereafter fall in love, get married. 4 children later, here we are. I would leave the big cardiology practice in 2012, start my own practice. But it's been an amazing experience. And if the title here is Get Better Faster, you don't get better in mainstream medicine. You get worse. They give you more pills, more procedures, and life expectancy for the American male is 76. So if you want the 76-year-old life expectancy, stay in the medical model. If you want the 100-year heart, if you want longevity, vitality, clarity, with your brain and body intact for a long, long time, that's what we do, here in this, in the better place.
Yeah, I appreciate that for sure. And I think that so many of us that have jumped ship away from general practice or specialty practice into whatever this model is, functional medicine, natural medicine, I call it the new medicine, whatever it is that we're doing. So many of us have a story like that, where we just got so darn frustrated and we saw people just continue to suffer and suffer and suffer in that system with no real escaping. I have so many questions for you. And I've had the opportunity to interview you once before during the pandemic, and boy, you put some truth out there, and I want to jump into that. But before we even get into those brass tacks, I have a question. What do you think is fundamentally wrong with how conventional medicine approaches cardiovascular health that keeps people sick?
They go after the pharmaceutical first model. When someone walks into the door of a conventional cardiologist's office, they're extremely busy. So they're thinking about, how can I get this person out of my office as soon as possible? That's just fundamentally what they're thinking. So they're thinking, what is the diagnosis, and then what is the pharmaceutical drug or test or procedure that I can order on them. So they're thinking, okay, statin drug, blood pressure drug, cardiomyopathy drugs. They're thinking about CT scans. They're thinking about stress tests. They're thinking about angiograms, stents, bypass surgeries. That's what they're thinking of. And that's just the way that they're trained. It's not that they're bad people. It's not that they're evil people. They're just brainwashed people into that model. They're not thinking about, how can we talk about nutrition? How can we talk about sleep, sunshine, environmental toxins? How can we talk about chiropractic? How can we talk about holistic dentistry? How can we think about evidence-based supplements or biohacks like sauna and red light? They're not thinking that way because that's just not the way that they've been trained. So that's really the fundamental paradigm shift. They're working they're in the sickness world, and what we're talking about, the three of us here, we're talking about the health world, true health.
Yes. And I remember just kind of coming back to what you just said. It's a definitely, from my opinion, and I'm very opinionated on this, part of it's a training issue. I mean, they're not really trained in anything except the laundry list that you gave us. I jump back to when my far better half, Rachel, was going through her nurse practitioner training, and I can't remember the class exactly, but it was about diagnosing thyroid stuff, right? And long story short, what they learned was how to use drop-down menus. You do a diagnosis, and then the next thing is a pill, a procedure, or a referral, or whatever it is, and that's it. So Rachel, I remember she was in her class, and it was virtual during pandemic, right? So she asked a question like, "What about this? What about like questions about like the thyroid, like getting to the root of it?" And they literally said, "You cannot think that way. It's a diagnosis. It's levothyroxine or a referral, and that's the end of it." And I remember that from trainings that I had gone through, but it's so much there that the training's just not there. There's the indoctrination that occurs, that most of us that are doctors in some form or another, for better or worse, are indoctrinated with a God complex. What I mean by that is what we learn is absolutely correct. This is facetious, but this is what we're told. It's absolutely correct, and it's incontrovertible. We are the gods in the room, and we know everything, and nobody should question us. And so when you're given limited opportunity to even learn, when you're given limited opportunity to educate, we're going to go to those drop-down menus, and it's going to be, like you said, a procedure, referral, et cetera. It reminds me, and I'll put this back to you after this. It reminds me, I was watching a documentary many years ago called Escaping the Medical Matrix or something like that. It's an interesting show looking at veterans. They had a cardiologist on there, Jack, that I think is interesting. And she said this, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this. She said, I know how to sit down and tell people how to be healthy and prevent heart attacks. I can talk to them for hours about diet and movement and all these healthy things, and I might get paid $150. And the hospital's not going to like that because the RVU, relative value unit, it's not really that billable. On the flip side, I can go in, have a surgery team prep somebody in 5 minutes. I go in 5 minutes, do a stent, make the hospital and me $1,500. Hospital gets paid 30 grand. Everybody's happy. I don't have to work. I get paid. They get paid. Patient thinks that that's what they're supposed to do. And she's like, there's no incentive. I'd love for you to chat about the incentive of cardiologists in this model.
Well, the incentives are tremendous, and we used to order nuclear stress test on everybody. That paid $2,000 to put that into our pockets, and all we had to do was say the word, get a nuclear stress test, and then we didn't even have to do anything outside of interpret the report. So it's they're all in bed together. So you mentioned the electronic medical records softwares. So it's like they are in bed with the insurance companies, that are in bed with the hospitals, that are in bed with the doctors and the pharmaceutical companies, and ultimately the government. This is all just this kind of self-perpetuating megalith of medical control, and it leads to such bad outcomes. And like we said, 76 for an American male, maybe 78 for a female, and the last 10 to 15 years of those people's lives are all miserable and sick. And it's what we're trying to get out of the sickness model. We're trying to get into the health space here, but ultimately, if we kind of look at it and we say, well, they're not allowing us the time for root cause, not allowing but the doctors don't get the training in it. So it's not like, oh, the doctor doesn't give me any time. The doctor has nothing else to say. because they don't have any training in nutrition, lifestyle, evidence-based supplements. So there's nothing really else to say. But to your point, they're heavily incentivized to get people in as fast as possible. And when you make $150 per appointment, well, your goal is to have, 10 to 15 of those, in an hour. And therefore you can make a lot of money from it. But I'll wrap that up too, is that I recently was critical of another cardiologist online who made a post about cholesterol, saying that the new mantra of the National Lipid Association is lower for longer, meaning the lower the number for the longer period of time leads to the best outcomes. Well, the National Lipid Association is owned by pharmaceutical companies that are the main sponsors of that organization. So, again, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and especially when you're forced to comply, therein lies the problem. But I think people are seeing through that now so more than ever, especially in a post-COVID world.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think both you guys are sharing some really credible pathways for people to find a way out, and why they're so entrenched into it, because everybody's in cahoots. Like you said, Jack, it's big box medicine. It's big government pathway medicine. And it's the indoctrination of the student becomes the doctor, becomes the trusted resource in that community. They used to be pillars of our community. Like, you would know that you're going to go see, when I was a kid, I'd go see Dr. Green. I knew when Dr. Green would see me as a little boy, like, he was going to look for my best outcome, because he loved my mom, he loved my family, and he wanted to see me have the best quality of life. And then I think I just looked it up. It was 1954. Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. And now we have doctors that are trying to break the 4-minute patient visit time. And
it's true.
And they're not putting hands on people, and they're not really ingrained into that person's life. They're not building a relationship with them and actually taking care of them like they love that family. And I think there's a big disconnect with what you're saying, is it becomes this mill of how quickly can we see people? How quickly can we give them a solution and get them to pay us the most for the model of this method? And it doesn't really get anything to improve. It just creates a lifetime customer.
Yeah.
James, real quick, I remember when I was a medical student, so this is going back into the mid 1990s, I was on a dermatology rotation, and the dermatologist he had multiple sclerosis, so he was in a wheelchair, and he sat there, and people would come in, and they'd come in like every 2 minutes, and they would sit down. He would take a look at what their skin issue was, and he would prescribe steroids or antifungals or both, and he would write the script, and then they'd be out the door. And that happened all day long. And it was this absolute factory.
Yeah.
And, ultimately what we're here, to really discuss is about, how do we get better faster? And it is the only strategy after all my years. And I was born into the medical matrix, right? My father was a cardiologist. I was in the womb listening to the stories about cardiology as a young kid. That's all I wanted to do, is become, just like my father is my hero. And we're here to talk about real solutions, for people. And again, as someone who's the ultimate insider and whistleblower, God bless the men and women who work in emergency rooms and trauma centers, but for the prevention, treatment, and reversal of chronic disease, they've got nothing at all.
Amen to that. Unfortunately, you're totally right on that. And it reminds me, talking about not being having hands-on and contact and just all these things. James, I don't think I've shared this with you. Friend of ours that Jack might know, Dr. Jennifer Landa. She is a hormone doctor. I don't know how else to say it, but she's a women's hormone specialist. She wrote a great book, a little risque, but it's called The Sex Drive Solution for Women. It's great. It's easy, but she describes in the front end of that book her experience when she was a doctor, a great doctor that people were coming to, that people thought was the best doctor in the world for women's hormones. And she's an OBGYN by training. She said, I got so good at my job that all I need to know is if they were cycling, and basically if they were cycling. And if they were still cycling, it was birth control pills and Zoloft. And if they were no longer cycling, it was Prempro and Zoloft. And literally that's the question. Are you cycling or not? And she's like, I did that for over a decade until she hit menopause and had some hormonal changes. And then she was like, oh, fuck, what have I been doing? And change. It's kind of, I think, the revelation a lot of us get. So I just want to share that it's rampant across industries. Also, she said, by the way, hormone experts, OBGYNs get 4 hours of clock training in hormones. They're not hormone experts. Okay. Back to this. I want to talk through your 100-year heart method, because I just on the last interview we did, I don't even want to live to 100. I want to live to, I said, 150, 300, 1,000 years old. How old can I get? I want to know about your 100-year plus heart method, and how does this actually reverse heart disease when conventional medicine is saying everybody needs a statin drug, everybody needs metformin, everybody needs XYZ. Tell me about it.
Well, I mean, it's really just about, root cause. So when I met the woman who become my wife, and she tells me all the stuff about my father, and she said, you need to become a DC. And I said, what? I said, I just finished up all this training, 10 years to become a cardiologist. I'm on the job. My career is really exploding right now. And you want me to go back to chiropractic school and become a DC? And she said, no, not becoming a DC doctor of chiropractic, become a DC doctor of cause. And that's what I did. It's all about, root cause medicine, is what it is, root cause cardiology in my case. And statins are not root cause, and blood pressure drugs are not root cause, and stents and surgeries and bypasses and, ablations, none of that's root cause. And that's always what we're talking about. And like we mentioned already twice, the average American male, they're living to 76 and they're dying on many different pharmaceuticals. So if you want a different plan, then you got to think totally differently. And I guess maybe to wrap this little part up is that our kind of mantra and method at Natural Heart Doctor, the 100-year heart method, is the eat well, live well, think well. Eat these foods, avoid these foods, live this lifestyle, think these thoughts. And then we throw in, test, don't guess with advanced testing. We do evidence-based supplements, biohacking strategies, and that's how we can do it. I want everyone to know, and you can close your eyes and we can all say this, my genetics are perfect. I am built in the image of God, and my genetics are perfect. All disease is man-made. All disease is from too much bad stuff, not enough good stuff.
It's like you're a professor teaching us, the simplicity of it all, right? I mean, I wish somebody would have said that. I mean, get the bad stuff out, put the good stuff in. I mean, it's great balance. I mean, it's
right.
It's not hard, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they would have said that to me on the first day of medical school, right? We're going to teach you about 20 different skin issues, and we're going to teach you about 10 different inflammatory bowel conditions, but we want you all to know this.
Yeah.
Everything is from too much bad stuff, not enough good stuff. Frame it like that would have just been absolutely spectacular.
There's no philosophy in medical programs. In fact, there used to be philosophy in chiropractic programs, and that's even going away because we all want to be that prescriber, right? I mean, that's everybody's jonesing for that for some reason. I want to segue just a little bit right on what we're talking about. And we mentioned like not pharmaceuticals first, right? There's so much there. I want to underscore this, that the American Heart Association on their own website and in their own journal called Circulation, they say things like, hey, over 1 million people are going to die this year alone just due to heart disease. Out of those 1 million plus people, at least 80% in the journal, 90% online can be prevented. They can literally be prevented. That's 800 or 900,000 Americans that we could save this year if we just focused on prevention. But like you said, we're pharmaceuticals first. Here's the question, man. One of your most controversial positions that I see you posting all the time about, that I'm always liking, commenting, sharing when you do this. I know what you're going to, I know you know what I'm going to bring up. It's about cholesterol and statin drugs. The medical establishment has demonized cholesterol. Let's talk about what it is and what it isn't. And then why do you say that cholesterol is actually essential for every cell in the body? And what's wrong with statin drugs? I can't wait to hear this.
Okay, so basic anatomy and really physiology and histology tells us that cholesterol is a very important molecule, which is why all humans, all mammals, all animals have cholesterol. That's why a chicken egg contains cholesterol, why breast milk and all mammalian milk contains cholesterol. So cholesterol is part of the cell membrane, which is the fence that keeps things inside of the cell that belong, keeps things outside of the cell that don't belong. So obviously it's very important if it's inside of every single cell membrane, very important. Number two, cholesterol makes vitamin D. So cholesterol is coursing through the skin, sun hits it, turns it into vitamin D. Cholesterol is critical for our digestion, helps us emulsify our fats. Cholesterol makes up our hormones. Everybody's concerned. You mentioned Dr. Jennifer Landa, and being a hormonal expert. Well, where do hormones come from? They come from cholesterol. So cholesterol is a beautiful molecule. It's been vilified over the years because of big food, because of big pharma. And now whenever people think about cholesterol, they think it's dangerous. They want to lower it down. Pharmaceuticals like statin drugs lower numbers down. That's not debatable. If I remove your liver, your cholesterol will also go down. That's obviously not healthy. So we don't want to just drive a number down with pharmaceuticals. Those who take pharmaceuticals want to know, if I take a pharmaceutical, will it lower my risk of heart attack, stroke, and dying? And the answer, according to the statin data, is yes, they do lower the risk of heart attack, stroke, and dying by a little bit. And if you're listening to this and you're happy with a little bit, where you reduce your risk of having a heart attack, stroke, or dying this year from 3% to 2.8%, okay, then take your drug. But if you want to know, where's the advice I can go to? Where's the person I can go to get me close to 0% chance of heart attack, stroke, and dying? It's not going to be your cardiologist. It's going to be from a holistic practitioner. It's going to be from a doctor of chiropractic, because a doctor of chiropractic is not going to prescribe statin drugs. They're going to adjust you. They're going to talk about nutrition. They're going to talk about lifestyle. They're going to talk about healthy mindset. That's what they're going to do. They're going to talk about evidence-based supplements. And that is the strategy to get to the 0%. And not only do you prevent heart attacks, strokes, and dying, but you also preserve your muscle mass and your clarity and your vitality and your libido. That's what you're going to do in the natural world. Statin drugs. Let me wrap up three things about statins. Number one, they don't work as well as you think they do. Number two, they got a plethora of side effects. Number three, false sense of security. People think they can take a Lipitor and eat, live, and think however they want. The problem is they're going to die by 76. That's the problem.
There's so much to unpack, but I want to go back to your book, The Paleo Cardiologist. And before we were going to have you on, I was in the green room chatting with Dr. Jason about this. I said, they die with medication, they die without medication. And that's just what you said. And it's pretty darn spot on for where my path was going with you today. But I just want to let people know, go to naturalheartdoctor.com if you want to learn more about what Jack is doing. But The Paleo Cardiologist is a book that he wrote. It's got 4.6 out of 5 stars and 856 plus ratings. I don't know if that's current or not, but I think it's pretty darn accurate. That you've landed a mantelpiece into the world for people to have knowledge from. And everybody that writes a book, I'll tell you, most people write a book, it's just an expensive business card. And what you've done, this Paleo Cardiologist book, has been something that people have actually gotten, and they've actually been able to use it as a tool. And I think there's a big difference between writing a book and using something actionable and creating actionable knowledge. And I just want to commend you for that. But also, people that don't know, what is a holistic cardiologist? Like, what does that mean to the mom and pop out there that's like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Get off my statins and don't go to the MD. Like, what the heck? Go see a chiropractor. Like, what is this guy really talking about? So maybe walk people through that, knowledge of what a holistic cardiologist will do.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many of us that are out there, but really it's about root cause. If your cholesterol is abnormal, why? If your inflammation's high, why? Blood pressure's high, why? Atrial fibrillation, coronary artery disease, cardiomyopathy, why? We're always looking to peel back all those layers, and then we kind of run them through the, eat well, live well, think well type of mantra. And that's where ultimately people are going to get success. And, I think my book resonated well with so many people because, yeah, we talked about nutrition, but we talked about the lifestyle. We talked about chiropractic care. Chapter 14 is called The Wonders of Chiropractic. Jason, to your earlier point where you were talking about psych meds, chapter 5 of my book is One Nation Under Prozac, where, our intention there is to identify, hey, listen, mental health disorders and violations of thinking well are a serious problem. And the answer is not Prozac. It's to get to root cause as to why people are suffering from, childhood trauma, PTSD, anxiety, stress, fear, worry, depression, which was all, accentuated during the pandemic. I mean, they put us in fear. They put us social isolation, all these different things that would be so problematic, to people and make their situation worse. And, Jim, also you mentioned my book as far as, 4.5 stars. I think this is a great opportunity to say there's a lot of haters out there for this message of health and wellness.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people never, they'll give my book a 1-star rating. They never read the book. There's no way you read my book and give it a 1-star rating. Just like your podcast, there'll be haters on this. Like, oh, you guys are just talking about chiropractic and bashing mainstream medicine and talking, supplements, whatever. So they'll give you a 1-star and they never heard any conversation on here. But this is a great, opportunity to say we live in a time right now where the most important thing is twofold, 2 things. Number 1, freedom of choice over our bodies. Stay out of my body. I'll stay out of your body. I'll stay out of your body. You stay out of my body. I got opinions, but I got to choose a freedom line. You're free to do what you want to yourself. I'm free to do what I want to myself. And then number 2, the freedom to discuss these things in open forums, ideally on social media. I was recently just kicked off TikTok after having multiple warnings. I had 485,000. And I don't like the word followers. Followers is kind of lame terminology. I don't really like that, but nonetheless, that's what they would call them. Or followers.
I'm going to call them
fans. 485,000 people on there who were following me, and now that's all gone, all because of a freedom of information. So I guess you can show videos of people getting horribly injured, and you can show people swallowing 75 hot dogs, but you talk about natural health and wellness, and that'll get you kicked off. But hey, we move on. God is the plan, and we'll stick to it.
And well, this just tees up perfectly for a thought that I had going into the interview today. You've been featured on CNN, NBC, Fox, ABC, quoted in the Washington Post, USA Today, and been in mainstream dissemination of their truth. And you've also been on hundreds of podcasts and podcast media. Tell me how you stand today with the mainstream approach, legacy media, and what we're doing today with podcast media.
Well, I think podcasting has the ability to be freedom town where we can have these kind of conversations. Mainstream legacy media obviously still restricts our message because they are bought and owned by big pharma, big ag, big box foods, all those kind of things. And I'm not one of those people who wants to ban pharmaceutical, direct advertising to people. I mean, if pharma is advertising, Prozac or similar, and people are like, oh, I should go on that, then I mean, that's up to them. Freedom guy.
I was just going to say, from my point of view, and it comes up on the show quite a bit for some reason. I don't talk about it publicly a whole lot, but because I don't want to be judged. I have a master's degree in journalism. Don't judge me. From the Adler School of Journalism, second only to Columbia. Cool. I'm trained in media framing. And there's a couple of things I learned, but I probably learned a lot, but there's a couple of things. I didn't know the word news hole until I went through journalism. For those of you guys listening, the news hole is everything that's you would say is not the news. So when we have a news show or a media show, we're delivering you something. That's the news hole. What's not in the hole? It's the advertisers, right? The news hole is to fill the hole between the advertisers. And the number one thing that we were told, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Who feeds legacy media? Pharmaceuticals. I mean, for the most part, I mean, that's where and probably the government.
They run the schools too.
I mean, they run the schools. I mean, between the government and the big pharma, I mean, people are always like, why? How come I didn't hear about not taking statin drugs? How come I didn't hear about this or that? Who's going to tell you? Who's ever going to tell you? 5,000 articles come out, or 3,000 on the extolling the benefits of fish oil on the cardiovascular system. 1 or 2 articles come out saying, oh, it might be bad. What does the media run with? Those 1 or 2 articles. So Jack, I have a couple questions for you about this. Number one, coming back to things like fish oil, basic stuff. Can fish oil help the heart?
Jason, I'm not a big fan of fish oil any longer. Listen, it's very important for all of us to become malleable and to, learn from, really just to learn and change our techniques and not be stuck into one,
Sure.
Paradigm, whatever. So we're always learning. And over the last few years, I've really kind of gotten away from the use of fish oil, for example. There's been some concerns about increased heart rhythm, abnormalities, and I see a lot of people with atrial fibrillation and similar. I'm all about just food. We know that seafood eaters live longest, live the best, lowest risk of everything. So eat a lot of seafood. Let's start with that. Measure omega-3 fatty acid levels. There may be some role for fish oil for some people with extreme inflammation. Try it, see if it works. But again, we're really into the food-based supplements these days. We do a unvaccinated field harvested bison product,
Nice.
Which is bison, liver, heart, kidney. We use that. We use wild salmon roe instead of the fish oil. We do an unfiltered emu oil. We're just trying to come up with, and there are some roles, of course, for plant-based herbal remedies. We're trying to stay away from the synthetic lab-made vitamins these days. Food is medicine, lifestyle is medicine.
Yeah.
Do the most advanced testing and see where things are at. But back to the point again about the news hole and stuff like that. I mean, that's why you're not getting doctors like me on mainstream. It's very and if you do, they control the conversation, they control the rhetoric. I could be up there talking about one thing about, oh, eat this, live this way, whatever. And meanwhile, they've got like an image over me, is like their list of basically saying like, don't listen to anything this doctor's saying, do this kind of stuff. So the media, as you know, from journalism training and stuff like that, your skills are so much greater than the average guy like me coming on the mainstream. And when I was on CNN 2015, they just cooked me. They just served me up on a silver platter as that sacrificial lamb. But listen, I survived it, and we all have a mission, and I moved on.
I love it.
And that's why I asked you, mainstream legacy media versus podcast media, because there is freedom of speech. And that is a very important thing in our world, especially as we all live in America. And that amendment is something that's near and dear to my heart. Medical freedom, family health freedom. Those are like the openers for my other podcast, Chiro Hustle. And I say, if you need guidance on any of these topics, find a neighborhood chiropractor and find somebody in your city that can give you guidance for you and your family's health. And body autonomy, so important. But also, your body belongs to you. Like, you have the domain of that. That is your intimate responsibility to keep yourself healthy. Relying on other people, obviously it's good. Like, if you get hurt and you have a heart condition, you go to crisis care, obviously that's the right thing to do. Like, you aren't going to say, oh gosh, I have a body autonomy, I'm going to take care of my heart now that I have this crisis thing happening and my arm has pain in it. Like, I'm just going to think myself healthy and go for a walk. No, it's not advisable. But I think when people really think about medical freedom, family health freedom, and body autonomy, these are topics where they do want to posterize you in mainstream media. When you say, hey, have some gumption, have some tact with your own decision making, be somebody that is the bigness of the fellow that is inside of you, have some philosophy, but also trust the experts when it is in a crisis mode. But I think that these are things that the legacy media is not ever going to shine a good spotlight on, because there's no money in healthy people. I'll say it time and time again.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, the money is in the repeat customer, right? It's absolutely true. I want to go back to a word, Dr. Jack, that you used. It's hot. It's a hot trigger word. And I love that you said it. Plandemic. I want to go back to what everyone in the know was suspecting early on, with mRNA, spike protein type stuff, and myocarditis and pericarditis and clots. And I mean, we had people coming out saying like, we got to be careful. We got to be careful with this technology. It could hurt people. And then of course, you and him and everybody else that was saying that got ridiculed and attacked. And I know that that's when I had you on Girl Health Radio, my very short-lived previous podcast, and we chatted about that. Now we're in the post-pandemic world. I think, yeah, the pandemic, right? The bubble's been popped. I think I hope even some people that had their eyes, wide shut have opened them now and can see some of it, at least some of it. Here's my question. People that, and we see athletes, young athletes dropping dead. Every day it's in the news. The healthiest people on the planet, young people that got the jab, die over and over again from myocarditis, pericarditis, heart attacks, all this shit. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I got to hear your thoughts on the vaccine. Can we know the damage has been done. Can we undo it?
Yeah, a lot of questions there. And, ultimately it's kind of hard to say pandemic with a straight face.
I know.
I mean, it really is like, on just so many levels, everything was just handled incorrectly, there. And, to your point, the vaccines, the vaccine injury, what we saw acutely, what are the long-term consequences, James's hat, right now, about stay human, like how do we stay human versus, trans humans, and how do we become, how do we avoid becoming one with technology and with AI? And, so again, there's so many questions, and yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, but sometimes those conspiracy theories come true. We don't really know, where things are going to be down the road, but all we can do is try and be as healthy as possible and to make healthy decisions. And a lot of people were fooled the previous time, and let's hope they're not fooled again when they announce the next something that's coming. But a lot of people, their eyes are open. A lot of people, again, because of the freedom on the internet to have these conversations, they've woken up to it. We'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. But it's kind of like, whenever we ban something like Bobby Kennedy and, the banning of artificial, food colorings and stuff. And I think on a society basis, that's certainly beneficial. So these inner city African-American children, for example, they'll have less food colorings in their bodies. And I think that's certainly good. But whenever we give the government the ability to make the laws, we may not like the laws the next time around. Like we're pro making laws to get rid of the artificial colors, but we weren't pro the laws that were mandating vaccines. And the next time around, we may not, so for example, we are all aware of data that has been produced that said red meat is bad, right? Red meat causes cancer. Red meat causes heart attacks. Red meat is responsible for global warming. So there will be a political, party in power at some point in the probably near future that says we need to ban the consumption of red meat. Well, what do you think about that?
Yeah, the production of it, the consumption of it, the purchase of it, the transaction of it. I mean, it's crazy. And red meat's been vilified. Thank you for the segue, because I want to talk about the paleocardiologist, right? I don't want to make any assumptions, but I will share with you that in my own health journey, I'm writing my second book. My first book, I like to give us a selfless plug here. The Epic 5 Plan, bestseller in 2023. Pick it up on Amazon. It's free for Kindle Unlimited. Can change your life if you'll let it. Pick up Jack's book while you're there too, The Paleocardiologist. I'm writing my second book, Dr. Jack, called Carnivore Consciousness, right? And I think that we can all go with where that's going, right? It's more of a dive into the evolutionary biology and anthropology and ancestral eating, and it's bigger than just eat meat. So I'm writing it. I'm going to let you guys know. I haven't even shared this with James. I'm writing this specifically to disrupt what we're talking about. I'm writing this as the end all, well-referenced, irrefutable book on carnivore, and dispelling those myths. Red meat obviously comes up. When I tell people that Rachel and I do carnivore, I'm writing this book, it's like, oh my God, you're going to get cancer and it caused all these problems and this and that. I have my own opinion on that. Dr. Jack, I'd love to hear your opinion on red meat, carnivore, paleo.
Well, again, we can find all kind of literature to support all different types of things, and for me, it just goes back to, and James made this comment earlier as well, just these basic fundamental tenets of human existence. So, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. They ate seafood, they ate meat, they ate eggs and avocados and coconuts, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, raw honey. Again, they had their mother's milk, and maybe for the last, 15, 20,000 years, we've domesticated animals. Eating meat is mentioned in the Bible like 300 times. So it's certainly very important to eat meat. And obviously, when you eat the quality meat, I think that's going to lead to the best outcome. That's the only thing that I eat, personally.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, when James and I were at this event in Victoria, British Columbia, I found the local restaurants to go to that were organic. We stopped at the Whole Foods when we got off the plane, when I met up with, Skip, Weiss and his wife and stuff, Julie. So it's, these are the things that we have to do in order to stay healthy. But, again, to the point, I was talking to a friend of mine who we had this conversation, and he's like, well, I was all for vaccine mandates and vaccine laws. And I said, Brad, you're gay, you're a homosexual, and there may come a time when there's a political party in power that says you can't be gay, you can't be out in public if you're gay. How would you feel about those laws? So whenever you give the people the ability to make laws, you run into problems. And again, so to vilify meat, to go on that agenda of what they're doing, where they want us all eating farm raised, and created crickets and things like that. It's not good. It's not what we want. So, back to, I mean, listen, I think carnivore is okay for a cleanse. I don't want to bash on your book, and I'm sure you have a lot of different nuances and tenets to it. And, frankly, we can agree to disagree if that's the case. But our ancestors hunted and they gathered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the majority of the most nutrient dense foods are undoubtedly seafood and animal products. And one problem that I have with carnivores, or maybe a bone to pick, pun intended, is that they don't eat the seafood. And I think that's a big mistake.
Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting. Yeah. And I don't want to give my book away, but I will say it's not pure carnivore. It started as, red meat, salt, and water. And I got some health benefits from that. And my labs changed and I lost weight and all that crap, but it's not really sustainable for me anyway. So I started adding in fish and poultry and other meats and dairy products, and not milk and things like that, but cheeses and cottage cheeses and I added those, and then we started adding in the avocados, some seeds, onions, artichoke hearts, olives, right? So it's been a foray into, and this is what I was really telling James. He hears about this book all the time, and I'm like, the longer I do this, and that's why it's called carnivore consciousness and not just Bradley carnivore diet. It's really about the transition from, let's get the health benefits, like you said, maybe for a short term, but what does that sustainable look like? And this is what I say all the time. I think the best diet is an ancestral diet of hunting and gathering. It's probably not going down to the store to buy all the stuff that's box, can, package, wrapped, ultra processed, etc. But going out and foraging. I know we can't do all of that with seeds and nuts and all of that, but I'm a big fan of ancestral eating, and I think that's where my book's going. I'm about a third of the way through it, but I already see the end game, and I do think you said we could agree to disagree. I actually think we're agreeing on this. And so when I say I want to disrupt the industry, not just the diet industry, not just the cardiology industry, not just the metabolic and the autoimmune and all that junk, I want to disrupt the carnivore industry as well. I like where it's going, and I'll probably shoot you a copy of my manuscript to get your opinion on it.
Would love to see it.
That's great. Thank you.
Supplements versus meds. It sounds like that's how we've basically started to figure out how to regulate people. And you said no fish oil. I use these types of things. You're using organ meat. It sounds like you have a good method to get people the supplementation they need without taking synthetic junk. And I think that the normal big box medicine shops, there's basically like mechanic shops, and they're like, oh, we'll just buy this thing and put it on here and we'll fix you. And this is how we fix the broken part. We're just going to pump this through you, and we'll never test you again. You just take this for the rest of your life, like legacy medicine. You just take this stuff, and this is how we're going to fix your part. So supplementation versus meds. Do you think there's a place that those things can live together when somebody's like myocarditis, pericarditis? Like, do you think that you could team conventional methods with your method and get people better faster?
My goal, James, is always to get people off pharmaceuticals as quickly as possible. So, for example, blood pressure drugs are absolute poison. We got to get to the root cause and get people off the drugs as soon as possible. Statin drugs are very easy to stop. And that's always has to be the person's goal is, if I'm on these meds, psych meds, gut meds, cardiac meds, how do I get off these as safely and as effectively as possible? I don't think that there's really a combined approach like, hey, let's go for the best of both worlds, because I don't think there's anything best in the chronic disease world of pharmaceutical companies and the mainstream methods. So I don't really see any role, for it there. It was kind of asked earlier, like, okay, if you have toxins in your body that were injected into you, or you swallowed, chemicals or whatever it may be, pharmaceutical chemicals into your body, how do you get them out? I think it really just goes down to the same methodology. Eat these foods, avoid these foods, live the right lifestyle, avoid the onslaught of additional toxins to the best of your ability, think the right way. And then, what are the evidence-based supplements? What are the ways we can bind up those toxins, pee them out, poop them out, sweat them out? All very important. Are there supplements that can help us in that arena? The answer is yes. Chiropractic is always and will always remain a huge focus of health and wellness and healing. So the chiropractic adjustment, the way that it lowers inflammation, lowers oxidative stress, and improves sympathetic, parasympathetic, sympathetic balance, autonomic balance, increases heart rate variability, improved immune function. Chiropractic is proven to lower blood pressure 17/10. Big fan of that. So, I do think that the doctor of chiropractic is really uniquely positioned to become the gatekeeper. And if the chiropractor maybe, obviously if it's an emergency situation in some areas, okay, you go to an emergency room. Some areas where the chiropractor may look to refer you out. But, again, I think chiropractic and your chiropractor is a great place to start. All children should be under the care of a chiropractor. I hate pediatricians. Pediatricians have no role whatsoever except for like in an emergency room. But otherwise, chiropractor, take care of the kids.
Amen.
Amen. And agreed.
Mike, if I could take this thing off here, I'd just drop it.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to go back to this idea of the best of both worlds, because I think, Jack, you said it really well. I'm going to try to rephrase it so my brain can think through it. The best of both worlds. The problem that I have with that concept, and I get what we're looking for, is like, is there a drug that I can take and natural medicines and this and that? It reminds me of coming back to cardiology meds like statin drugs, the lisinoprils and Crestors and all that crap. I was lecturing, just to let everybody know the way medical students are taught. I got asked to lecture on a natural approach to cholesterol management at the medical school here, University of Iowa, one of the largest teaching hospitals in the world. I had the big room, hundreds of kids. I don't know if they were residents to students. I don't know who was in there, but a lot of people were in there. And I was talking about, and I'm not going to get technical, but something called the HMG-CoA reductase pathway. Jack knows what I'm talking about. And basically, for that drug to work, it requires CoQ10 or ubiquinone, which we call a supplement or a nutrient, but really it's a hormone. It's ubiquitous hormone. It's found in every single tissue, every single cell throughout the body. For that drug to work, it requires CoQ10. CoQ10 is stored in muscle tissue. One of the black label warning, which most people don't even know statin drugs have, it says, holy crap, if you've got muscle weakness and soreness, you better contact your pharmacist and doctor, because it could be rhabdomyolysis and you might be dying, because it's not just in your skeletal muscle, it's in your cardiac muscle too. So I was talking about this and basically said, I laid this out and that it robs body CoQ10. And I said, in my humble opinion, if you're going to prescribe those drugs, I think you should at least prescribe CoQ10. I think there's so much more to talk about here, but I said at least that. All the hands went up, Jack, every single hand in the room. And this is what they said. Why don't they tell us that in pharmacology? Like, they had no idea. And they're like, is this reference? Is this in the literature? Like, yeah, just go to PubMed. I mean, just type in HMG-CoA reductase and statins and, you're going to get it. Like, do they not teach you mechanisms of action, like MOAs? I mean, like what's going on here? Anyway, and I responded with like, yes, yes, yes to all that. And I said, I don't know why they're not teaching it. Why don't you ask your pharmacology professor? I don't know. I'm done. Guy walks up to the podium. I'm packing up. I don't know this guy. Slam it. He's clearly not happy. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm getting out of here. Sorry, I went a little over. He's like, that's not what it is. And I'm like, what is it? He goes, I'm pharmacology. Thanks. And I was basically booted out and never asked to come back. And I just think it's interesting that that's the kids. That's like, they're told statin drugs. You had a heart attack ever in your life, God knows you have family history of heart attack. You get on a statin drug. Better get you on metformin. I mean, it's like the magic sauce of those people. And I just wanted to share that with you. And I don't know if I'm venting. I don't have a question. James had his hand up, so I'm going to pass it to you guys.
well, I want to jump in briefly. And there's some tie-ins that I have for what you said and what Jack's been talking about. And number one, I don't know how many medications the average American's on. I don't. And here's the thing. Don't trust the sources. Like, you can't trust GTP. You can't trust Google anymore because they're not going to give you the real truth anymore. Like, we have to use like real, like new testing. We have to create a new pathway for people to get this information, because back when I made my first movie, Chiropractic the Documentary, Billy DeMoss, who we all know, told me that the average American was on 12.9 prescriptions. This was back in 2015. Okay. 12.9 prescriptions, the average American. I just searched Chat GTP and Google. It said the average American's on 4. Do you think we've gotten less medicated over the past 10 years or more medicated? So trust, we got to be careful of the source work that we trust to give us the information at finger's reach. And I think that that's something everybody should be aware of. And then I said, well, what's the most prescribed medication in America right now? And it's called Atrovastatin, which is a brand of called Lipitor. So the number one drug prescribed in America right now is for cholesterol. And that was our opener. So this is tying things in pretty interesting for me. And as we go through, you know, I know that there's people out there that are facing really chronic stuff though, Jack. Like they're facing like angioplasty and bypass and pacemakers. What is your advice for those people, knowing that we're not going to go to Chat GTP or we're not going to go to Google because we don't know how valid those truths are that they're feeding up to us?
Well, I think with that in mind, I mean, listen, you know, you're not sure who to believe these days, right? You're questioning your doctor, you're questioning what you're reading online. And I guess all you can really do is try and, you know, go to as many different sources, talk to as many people, and then make the best decisions for you and your family. And if you feel at the end of the day that it's Lipitor or it's a vaccine or anything similar, you know, then go ahead and do it. But you know, the reality is that if we just really understand that we are built perfectly by God, give the body what it needs, take away what it doesn't, that's the answer. The pharmaceuticals are not going to be the answer outside of emergency use and situations, always with the intention of getting off them. The other thing I do want to mention too is that so many people are prescribed statin drugs these days because they went and got a coronary artery calcium scan, which I'm 100% against. They call that the calcium scam, because everybody's going to get this radiation-based test. The radiation actually causes heart disease, cancer, and dementia. So they get this radiation-based test. They find out they've got coronary calcium. The doctor recommends at a minimum a statin, but often recommends a stress test, which they didn't need, maybe stents they didn't need, all these things they didn't need. And it's just, you know, it's really just unfortunate. But if we just trust the wisdom of the body, that is the only way. It's the only way.
And speaking of the wisdom of the body, and of course, coming from with your training, your wife, my background, James' background, chiropractic has this idea of the innate intelligence that's within us. That's a fractal of the universal intelligence of the God source, right? And I love that. And our body is wise. And my wife reminds me all the time that even with symptoms, even what seems like dysfunction, the body's always trying to heal. The body's always doing everything it can to conspire to get us as healthy as we can. If we're not putting the right stuff in, it's not going to work the right way. If we have the bad stuff in, it's going to work bad. Put the good stuff in, it's going to work well. The reason I bring all this up is because I think something that the general public also doesn't know when we're talking about stents and bypasses, there's this idea, nobody talks about this, I've never seen this in the public, of collateralization of the arteries. And it's a big word, guys, but I'll do my best to describe it. Basically, if there's a block in a major artery, the body's so smart, it starts to grow other arteries to feed the tissue, right? So it's called collateralization, where the arteries like grow to get that blood flow there. And a lot of times by the time people get those stents or those bypasses or the declogging or whatever, the collateralization might be enough to keep them alive. And I just think it's a really interesting perspective that in cardiology, we don't really acknowledge that innate intelligence of that collateralization. Like you said, it's no matter what, statin drug, stent, radioactive testing and procedures. It's just interesting. I'd love to hear your ideas about collateralization. Am I thinking the right way? I mean, I'm not saying there's not a need for X, Y, and Z at some times, limitations of time and matter, but I'm curious about your ideas on this. What have you seen as a surgeon, as a cardiologist? Tell me about that.
Yeah, collateralization, can be very important, most certainly. And listen, as people develop coronary artery disease, sometimes the vessel becomes 100% blocked slowly. So it goes from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 all the way to 100% blocked. And as it starts to get towards that 95, 98% blockage, your body can form what's called collaterals. They can open up other blood vessels in that area, or the 2 out of the 3 main arteries can supply branches to that area that's totally blocked, to that part of the heart. So a lot of times we'll go in there, do an angiogram, total blockage, but there's no heart damage done. So ultimately, there is the body can heal, the body can repair itself. We see a lot of people who have congestive heart failure who improve and they normalize. So again, when you do these things, you do these strategies, your body's got this. The body's smart. The body has the innate, as you said, and it can recover.
I just recall a client that we had, and he had some obesity and he hadn't taken care of himself, and he came in with, I don't remember what it was. I want to say 90%, but let's say 80% blockage of, what this and that. And he was going to get scheduled for surgeries and all this stuff. And he didn't want to do that. And so we just dug in with, honestly, lifestyle medicine more than anything. It's kind of what you're talking about. And he went back for his, I don't know, it was a whole year went by, and he went back for his thing and got checked out. And he said, how's that blockage, that 70, 80% blockage, whatever. And the doctor said, it's down to like 10 or 20%. Like whatever had happened in that year, his body fixed it. And there were no meds involved. There were not even really a lot of supplements. It was diet and lifestyle. And what's cool is his name's Michael, and he knows who I'm talking about. He knows I'm talking about him. Michael he went on to found a church. He's a pastor. He's got a congregation. It's amazing, this guy's vitality that came back. And again, he could have been a statistic. I don't know. I know he's alive now and doing well. But he could have not gone that way if he could have gone down that conventional cardiology approach. I just wonder if he'd even be here today. But anyway, I just want to share that. Thank you for sharing lifestyle. Jim, I know you said you raised your finger.
Yeah. I know that there's a lot of people that are going to watch this. They will, and they'll be fuming with ideas, and some will be like in glee because we're talking about things that they were hoping that they could get some clarity on, or they're going to be watching this and they're going to be fuming with like, damn it, this broke the model that I believed in. This isn't the insurance-based model that I want to, base my life around, because that's what I can afford. And that's who my work gives me like benefits from. And damn it, I'm going to use it. What's your advice to somebody that has fear against going against the doctor's pharmacological recommendation models?
For those of us who are, we have children, and even if we don't, we're all familiar with the concept of the bully, and the medical doctors are the biggest bullies in the world. But you got to stand your ground. You got to do what's comfortable for you. It's your body. It's your choice. It's your decision. And if it's an emergency, you're really at the behest of the medical doctors in the emergency situation. But for everything else, we can think about it. If they're recommending a procedure next week or a pharmaceutical now, to prevent X, Y, Z, get other opinions about it. Use the internet, use websites, use ChatGPT and AI, and really, get as much information as you can, and then make an informed decision, informed choice. This is in the 1970s, where it's my way or the highway. We have the ability now to sit back and say, I'm going to get a second opinion, third opinion. I'm going to read about it. There's a gazillion websites and books and people to ask. And ultimately too, listen, go ask your chiropractor. Go ask your chiropractor what they think about a certain situation. The chiropractors have a really good fund of knowledge. In this arena, if you don't have a good chiropractor, ask your friends. Your friends likely see somebody. Look online, ask online. We got a big group of Natural Heart Doctor, private group on Facebook. We got like 25,000 people on there. Pretty much, most people are under chiropractic care. Ask there, and you'll find someone in your area you can trust.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to say too that with approaching a chiropractor, doctor of chiropractic, there's so much value in that. I don't want to, turn this into a chiropractic discussion necessarily, but the interesting thing about chiropractors that a lot of people don't know is that they have to go through most of the same, almost exactly the same training as a medical doctor. Plus, they have to learn adjusting.
Plus they learn adjusting, which is awesome.
Yeah, and philosophy a little bit, depending on the school you went to, right? James and I are still collecting money to buy green books for the rest of the schools that have gotten rid of them. But anyway, it's interesting because doctors of chiropractic, this has just occurred to me while we were chatting. Most doctors of chiropractic are not able or want to prescribe medications. They would have gone to a different type of school if they wanted to do that. But chiropractors, because of that, have had to learn how to help people without drugs for over a century now. They've been learning as the doctors, the main doctors, the last drugless profession on the planet, as far as I know, that have really stood their ground to say, we don't want to do that. We don't need to do that. There's plenty of Pez dispensers in the world. How can we get people better without drugs? And so your doctors of chiropractic over the last century plus have really developed into experts in all of these things, not just back pain, neck pain, headaches, and stuff like that. They've had to learn to adapt, to pivot, to serve their population in this way. And I just think it's interesting because when you go to your doctor of chiropractic, because like people think it's a limitation, well, they can't prescribe drugs. I'm like, dude, that's their biggest asset because they can't do it legally in most states, all states. They are by necessity having to learn all these other things that you're talking about. And if they're not experts in it, at least they know about it and can point you to the right direction and the right people. So I love that. Your natural health doctor fan page on Facebook, community on Facebook. I think that's fantastic.
I'm going to wrap this thing up with you guys, but I do want to put some status on what you just shared there when it comes to chiropractic philosophy. In chiropractic philosophy, the chiropractic method is they believe that the body needs nothing extra in it. It simply needs no interference. Once the interference is cleared, the body self-heals and self-regulates. So take that to your cardiologist next time and say, hey, when I cut my finger, I don't have to look at it and tell it to heal, do I? It heals naturally, just like your heart will heal. And if you keep the toxins out of it, you detox the pathways and you figure out how to keep your body more good in it and less bad in it, like Dr. Jack says, the body will self-heal and self-regulate. And they'll be like Michael, where they'll go on and plant churches and create methods to educate people on having better spirituality or just having a better quality of life and being a pillar in their community because now they're healthy and they're not dependent upon a broken system. So innate intelligence is real. Universal intelligence is real. And that creates the educated intelligence. It's the triune of intelligence. We all have it. Just like gravity, we all have it. Just like 24 hours in a day, we all have it. So basic things that keep us all the same: innate, universal, educated, and gravity, and 24 hours in a day.
I love that. And I just want to say yes to everything that you said. And while you're asking your doctors these questions and presenting this material, I'm a big fan of asking your doctor a really simple question. Hey, you prescribed that. How long am I going to take it? Like if you just get used to asking your doctor, what's your plan to get me off this medication? Now, granted, there could be around a prednisone or antibiotics. It's like 5 days, 10 days, whatever it is. But if it's a chronic drug, whatever that happens to be for a chronic illness, I would always ask your doctor, tell me your plan to get me off this medication. I don't want to take it for the rest of my life. And if you get the deer in headlights look and they say things like, oh, you're probably going to need to take that for the rest of your life, I don't tell you what to do, but I would get another doctor, at least another opinion, a second, a third. Your doctor needs to have a plan to get you off those meds.
And here's the thing. When it comes to you, the individual, you should want to get better faster.
Yeah.
no matter what it is. It shouldn't be a lifestyle medication plan that you believe that you should be indoctrinated with, that you should be proud of. You shouldn't be proud of your symptoms. You're not your symptoms. You are who you are, and just get over it. You don't want to be married to the doctor's office for the rest of your life. When I grew up, we were like, we would never go to the doctor. Like, it was like a bad thing. I mean, I grew up in a man's house. Like, we stayed away from the doctor as much as we could. Like, our leg would be falling off and we wouldn't go to the doctor. So I think we use that type of system as a crutch way too much. And I think you should use it sparingly. And that's just my opinion. And find somebody good that can help you out. I know that we're going to wrap this thing up, but Dr. Jack, I did want to ask you to share two things with us before we close out. Share with us a success story that you've seen with your methods, and maybe if there's something we didn't ask you that you wanted to touch on today.
No, I mean, listen, the success speaks for itself. My company has been around since 2012, Natural Heart Doctor. Every year we grow, we expand, we add more team members, add more patients and clients onto social media, onto our Facebook group, onto our patient database, people who are buying our supplements. So I'm going to say that that's really, speaks to it. I've got so many cases where somebody was told that they needed XYZ surgery or procedure. And then when my best advice was that they don't get that they succeeded with it. But I mean, I think we covered kind of all gamuts. And, James, it really goes back to, a lot of that kind of, and Jason, that chiropractic philosophy and some of these, catchphrases and things like that really just resonate so well. We keep using them because they are really so true, and they are just universal, timeless elements of health and wellness. But ultimately, listen, if you're not comfortable with what your doctor is saying, go get a second opinion, go get a third opinion, go talk to somebody else, and make sure you're comfortable, and then you live with your decision.
Take care of your body better than you take care of your car.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
When they say you got to get a transmission fixed, you go and get four mechanic opinions, and I think you should do the same thing for your health. And I think that just makes sense to the common person out there that's going to be listening and watching what we're doing. Any last things from you, Dr. Jason?
Oh man, I just want to say I wasn't prepared for that. I have a lot of last things. I'm kidding. I just love talking with Jack. I learned so much when we're together. If I just want to say I'm a fan. I'm one of your fans. In fact, I just also want to say
he's a follower.
I'm a follower. I actually consulted. I know you know this, but I consulted with your clinic and your doctors about my own cardiovascular history, my own cardiovascular health. My dad died, and my brother died right after him. My dad was 91, sudden cardiac death. I mean, they brought him back, but he died. And then my brother, sudden cardiac arrest, death, stood up watching TV, just a little older than me, and died last June, about a little over a year ago. And so this hits really home. And the preventative aspects of what we're talking about, and really, I don't want to say biohacking, but biohacking your cardiovascular tree or whatever you want to call that, putting the time, the energy, the understanding into it is super important for all of us. Number one killer this year worldwide is cardiovascular disease. We've got Dr. Jack Wolfson here, literally the expert on how to not die from cardiovascular disease. He's out there. He's got a community you can join online. He's got books you can read. You can follow him. You can be his fan like me. And I just want to say it's just great. I know we're pressed for time, but on the same vein, this conversation could have gone on another 2 or 3 hours, So, I mean, there's just still so much to unpack, but thank you, Jack, for your time. I'll get you my manuscript when it's a few more chapters in.
All right, very good. Thank you guys both so much for your podcast and sharing this information and putting it out there, because people need it. And the more people hear it, that's where the health revolution's on. So they fooled us last time, but it's not going to happen again to the majority of people.
That's right.
And I'll go and close out with our outro script. Dr. Jack, such a pleasure to have you on. You're absolutely incredible. I'm thankful that I have a history with you now, and you've been on our Get Better Faster show. The information you share today is going to help so many people take control of their heart health naturally, which I think everybody's looking for solutions. They just don't know who to trust, as we've discussed. Thank you for being so generous with your time and expertise and challenging the status quo. And I think that those are just really fundamentals in the world that people have to start thinking again. It's not just I have something, who's going to fix me? No, you have to be an active participant too, because I've always heard that the number one doctor in the world is the one inside of you. And that's why it's called innate intelligence. And I want to thank our amazing audience, the Get Better Faster Nation, GBF Nation. Thank you for listening to the show and your continued support. The best way you can support us is to share the show. Please share this with somebody who needs to hear this message. And if you want to learn more about Dr. Wolfson, as he mentioned today, his books, his protocols, and the way to work with him, go to naturalheartdoctor.com. That's naturalheartdoctor.com. And whether it's a family member that's dealing with a heart issue, a friend on multiple medication, or someone who's just frustrated with the conventional medical system, this information could literally change and save someone's life. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and get all the behind the scenes tomfoolery and all the travels that Dr. Jason and Rachel and myself do, and continue getting all the cool stuff that will be coming your way. We've got more incredible guests lined up for you who will blow your mind with real life solutions for reclaiming your health, your happiness, and your life. Until next time, keep questioning everything. Dr. Jack, thanks for being on with us today. Dr. Jason, you're an absolute star to have on as a co-host. And everybody out there that's watched or listened or will continue to listen, just keep getting better faster. Love and appreciate you guys.
Love you all.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Until next time.
All right. Sounds good, brothers. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.